show you how it's done, all right?
Yeah! All right. All right, so our next speaker is this lady.
Yes, Laurel Toby, by the way.
Laurel Toby.
No.
Did I say it wrong?
No, you were about to.
I was.
Hi. I can read mine,
I was going to say Touby.
Yeah, see? I told you.
It's okay.
Toby. All right.
Toby.
Can you guys hear me okay? I hate these things.
Is this in your way? We having issues?
You're in my way. All right.
I'm in your way. As you
I
can
was
tell,
supposed
this
to
is going to be
give
a
a solo
very
talk.
interesting interview.
I was supposed to give it solo talk, but then he made me sit on stage with him because he has to control me.
All right. This is going well. All right, so Laurel Toby.
Yes.
Who is Laurel Toby?
Oh, no, don't. Let's, please. Are we really starting that way?
Do you guys know who Laurel Toby is?
Okay, all right. So, you really want, okay, so you want me to just go into the whole spiel, right?
Let's give like a 1-minute intro.
Okay, hi, I'm Laurel. I founded a company called MediaBristro.com, and if you don't recognize me right now, it's probably because I'm not wearing this. I used to wear this weekly, monthly, yearly for over 10 years. I hosted cocktail parties to meet guys. I started my first cocktail party at Jules Bistro in the East Village in 1994. And I was single, and I was about 30. So don't do the math. And I basically wanted to meet guys in the media space because I was a journalist. I was working for, I think it was, Glamour magazine at the time. And believe it or not, there was no internet, there was no Tinder, there was no Match.com. So how do you meet guys? You just show up at cocktail parties and bars, and you go to coffee shops, and you look for guys who are reading and bother them. Oh, thanks. Yeah. You got to turn it on, though. All right. Great. So I started this party with 10 people, and through word of mouth only, grew it to 20, then 50, then hundreds, then thousands, then hundreds of thousands, and then millions of people, all through word of mouth. Never paid a cent on SEO. In fact, we didn't even know what SEO was. And the reason that I was able to do that was because it was a community, and it started with a very strong vision as a community, and so we'll talk about that. All right, so that's kind of who I am.
All right. And that's MediaBristro.
Yes, and so it became a company. It started as a cocktail party, and it became a company in, I would say, 96. I took it online. I created an email newsletter, one of the first ever email newsletters. People didn't even have email on their business cards at the time. They just scribbled it on a sign-in sheet at the door. And basically, from the email newsletter, which had a lot of information, it was packed with information about jobs that were available and housing, apartment listings, and somebody's book party. From that, I took it online, and it became a website in 1996. And at first, it was called Higher Minds. No, at first, it was called Laurel Toby's Press Club, because it was all journalists. I didn't want anybody else there. We were very exclusive, just like Matt. And I kicked people off my website. Yes, I did, if they weren't media. And it evolved from Laurel Toby's Press Club to Higher Minds, where you could hire journalists. So it became a job board. And then that evolved into a company that I renamed MediaBristro when I got sued for the name, Higher Minds, long story. And so MediaBristro grew from that small website with just job listings and we had resources page, we had an events page, we had a bulletin board. It grew from that into a company worth about 23 million. So I sold that and pocketed all that change.
That's some good ROI.
Yeah. So I am here to tell you that if you have an idea for a community, you can take it from 0 to millions of users, people. I call them my beloved friends. And you can monetize it. And you can actually make money and create a valuable thing in the world that's not just fun for you and for all of your friends, but also valuable to someone else who might buy it, or it might go public, who knows.
And so you told me once that you don't believe communities can really truly be built without a combination of offline and online.
Yeah. Yeah. I think everyone's using the word community, and they use it in the same sentence that they use engagement, right? So to me, that is passionless and soulless. To have true community, it's a different thing. It's a different bird. You can have it with a business, don't get me wrong. But in order to have it with a business, you have to have some kind of physical contact with the people, or it could be on the phone. I mean, you could have like a Hangout, a Google Hangout with your community, but you have to connect with them in a real way. And I guess in the future, we're going to be able to do this through virtual reality, right? So we'll have headsets, and we'll actually be able to show up at an event like this with our VR headsets on and commune with each other and talk to each other and flirt. Yeah.
What does virtual reality Tinder look like?
It's coming, guys. Virtual reality Tinder is coming.
So how do you define community?
I mean, for business or for just community?
Is there a difference?
Yeah, there's. I think they can be combined into one, but there is a difference.
What's the difference?
Well, there's like church is a community, right? Things like that are just purely places where you go to hang out with people who are like you, right? I guess community for business, there has to be some transactional element. There has to be somebody trading something, right? Or you're delivering some services or products to a group that are like-minded, think alike, or do something alike, or they have an enthusiast, they're enthusiastic about some subject. So there has to be some commonality of some sort, but there also has to be a transaction going on, don't you think?
Maybe. Isn't there always a transaction in a community?
I don't know. What do you guys think? I like to be a little interactive, so can you guys talk through it? Just throw ideas out there too? No?
What do you guys think?
Are we taping this thing?
Yeah, we are.
Oh, okay. So you
This is
probably don't
live.
want to do that. Okay. It's live.
It's not really live.
It's
We're
not
just
really
recording
live.
it.
You guys are not alive. I'm not hearing any words out of your mouths.
No, we tried to get them to ask questions earlier. They didn't want to come up. What's your advice for getting an audience to interact?
You directly look at one person, you point them out, and you say something.
who are we
will you?
looking at?
Joe. I don't know. That guy there. There's only a few guys over here. This is not a good place for me to meet men. Wow. Not really.
CMX is like the only tech conference that has more women than men, I think.
Yeah. That's kind of cool. Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
That's because we are uniquely good at this.
All right, so yell out. Whoa, really?
Yeah.
Yell out. Does community always have a transaction or not? Yes or no?
Yeah. Okay. For business. Community
Mostly
for
yes.
business.
What about not business? Does
What
it
about
always
not-
have a transaction?
What's the transaction at church? Tithing? Come on.
Time.
What do you mean time? Time is not a transaction. I'm sorry. Next.
All right, next question.
Okay, next question. Yeah.
What advice do you have for all the community builders in this room and all the community builders out there who are struggling to really prove and validate the value of what they do for business?
So, can I have a raise of hands? Who works for a bigger company, like a pretty big company? Raise your hands. All right. Now, can you shout out, do you feel like you are undervalued at your organization and they don't understand the value of what you're doing? Okay. All right.
Their boss might be in the room.
Oh, really? Okay. So I think, I hate to say this, but there's, at a big company, it's hopeless, because, you might as well, seriously, just get your skills, get out of there, get to a smaller company that values community, right? Because true community, there's no dollar ROI on it, right? There's no dollar ROI.
Uh-oh, where's Evan Hamilton? You hear that?
There's a dollar ROI on marketing and engagement and all that stuff, but if you just try to call it community, you're not gonna be able to tie those two things together. So you have to go somewhere where you can tie those two things together. At our company, we valued community as a dollar amount. I mean, we put it on the spreadsheets as like, this is a valuable thing. We're gonna do a lot of activities around community because we see that it drives sales of classes and seminars because they're opening our newsletters, they're opening our emails because they feel passionate about who we are and who the brand is, and therefore they're buying other stuff. So unless you can make a connection between that passion and that intensity of engagement and them buying other stuff from the company, then I would say you have to go to a smaller company that really understands and groks it.
So if it's not something they inherently believe in and don't have to prove that it's worth investing in, you're kind of
You're
out of
fucked.
luck.
Oh, sorry. Can I cuss?
Yeah, this is free for all.
Okay. Yeah. Just get out of there. Just learn what you can, and then go somewhere that understands community or start your own community. Because the big companies, I don't think they're ever going to get it. I really don't. They've been talking about this for 20 years. I went to a community summit in 2008. Okay, guys? A community summit. You know who was there? The same people who are here, but different bodies. The same companies threw their community people there, and what did they learn? I don't know.
So do you think that the industry is in a similar position to then, or is there some change happening now in how businesses are looking at it and the people who are doing it?
I'm very down on big business. I just feel, no, I feel like there are companies that are getting it. Like I think Zappos tries to get it, but they started as small companies and they grew. But once Zappos, Tony Hsieh is gone, the founder's gone, and he sells it or does whatever he does, brings in new body, some new person to run it. I don't think it's going to be the same. It's like that with any company. This is just, we have to accept this is the way things work, right, in business. You start small with passion and aggression, and you do well, and you grow it, and it becomes successful, and then it shifts, it changes, and then a new crop of people starts new things, and those grow, and those do well, and they change, and then a new crop of people. That's just the cycle of life. Yeah.
That's interesting. So you're saying that community can only work for a small, new organization.
Not new, but I think it's really hard to maintain it. What community? Raise your hands if you know a community that's lasted as long as MediaBristro has, over 20 years. Name one. Come on, I dare you. All right, one at a time. This is too much engagement. All right, The Well. Who here knows The Well? Raise your hands. Yeah, okay, like 2 or 3 people. You guys should know The Well. You're the community people, right? So you don't know The Well. All right, so I would say that is not, it's not a thriving. Churches are not businesses, though. I said business communities. That is not a fucking community. Where did you go back home? Where are you from? Oh, the fans. But where are they? Okay, but where are they aggregating? Where is the community getting together? Oh, at the games. That's not business. Okay, fine. If you want to define community as sports, I really beg to differ, because we would be at a sports conference right now talking about sports. Like, that's not, okay, fine, whatever. Anybody else?
It's unique from other businesses.
Yeah,
it's
I
true.
think it's pretty unique. Sports,
It's
church.
hard to think of a community, like a business-driven community, that like a brand that's had a really, really long-lasting.
Yeah, Craigslist, but I don't consider Craigslist a community any longer. Sorry, Craig.
You also told me you don't.
What? Apple computers. I would say there are communities of people underneath Apple computers, but I wouldn't say it's a community. I don't know. Do you think it is? There must be an Apple. Is there an Apple sponsoring this event?
No,
okay.
Not yet.
I haven't offended anybody yet. Red Cross is a community? I never would have thought that. What? Pardon?
DeviantArt.
DeviantArt. Oh, that's interesting.
That's
is
an
that
interesting one.
also a website, like a community where people gather and they go to meetings? Okay, that's cool.
So you also told me that you no longer see MediaBristro as a community.
Wow. I just don't know what they're doing anymore.
At what point did it stop becoming and acting like a community?
The minute they stopped doing cocktail parties was the minute that company started to
Once
spiral
once
out
they
of
took
community.
it all online and removed the offline component.
They removed all the fun stuff that we did to create community and to make people feel connected to one another and, incidentally, to the brand. Once you pull out that person-to-person, face-to-face, that magic, I would say you start to lose your community. And now people say, oh, I used to go to your parties, Laurel. I used to go to MediaBristro. I used to. And it sickens me. And I offered to help them, but they just ignored me.
Isn't it true that all communities will, if they don't adapt, if they don't, because ultimately, like, things will evolve, the people in it will evolve, the space evolves, the world evolves, and if the community stays in the same way, eventually it will kind of diffuse. But if it can adapt, then it can survive. And so you constantly have to be reinventing how you build your community.
Yeah, that's a great insight, David. Your name is
Thank
David,
you.
right?
It's
Okay.
David, actually.
Oh, David, yeah, I would have. Spunks. Yeah, I think it's really interesting what Matt Breimer is doing with his community. And it's just starting. And I joined Daybreaker, and I've been to some of the events. They're really exciting and magical. And I felt that I brought that type of magic to my cocktail parties. You know, the boa, and I introduced people around. I made sure nobody sat, you know, alone. I would walk around the room and grab people and force them to interact. And then I trained people around the country to do the same thing so I could spread the love. And you never talked about love, and I think that's an important part of community building.
Go on.
Yeah. So how many of you guys feel that you're expressing love to your communities in some way? Yeah. I think all hands should be raised, right? In order to have a real community, there has to be some emotion. It's not just a faceless, nameless business with an avatar. There's got to be the feeling that there are people behind it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be just the founder replicating him or herself, but it helps. And the way I replicated myself was to train people around me in that love feeling. So that means every interaction, every phone call from an angry customer, everything had to be met with love, right? And it's not always easy. And you reach out into other parts of the country and you find people who love your brand, and then you bring them in as ambassadors and helpers to spread that love, right? And you have to come from a place of authenticity, otherwise they don't want to help a company. I mean, it's kind of bizarre to think that you could get people to help a company, but they do if they feel that there are values behind that company and that there's love behind that company and that they're doing good in the world through being associated with that company. And so I have people still involved with the company, teaching classes for us. They're not making that much money, and they're making less than they did when they were working for me, but they love the give back. And so you got to tap into that with your community, and those become your best advocates around the world. I don't know if
That's great. I
didn't
mean, I
explain
think
that
that
very
gets
well.
to it's a consistent theme we're hearing. And, you know, I mentioned it in the beginning about starting with the value, about that spark, that core. And then you heard Matt Breimer talk about it. And I think you'll hear it time and time and time again. It all starts with those core values and the reason, the why behind everything. And if it builds out from there.
Yeah, so it
that's what
means
motivates
good
people.
communication skills. You have to communicate a clear value to the audience that you're activating, right? So you're activating certain members of your community to represent you to the other members. So these are your, I don't know what they're called, there's an 80-20 rule, right? So this is part of that 20% that are truly, you know, they're gonna be engaged. And you communicate very well to them and you make them feel warm and embraced and part of your organization. Not through money, but through other things.
Right. And you also are a big proponent of like communities as much about who is included as much as who's excluded.
Yeah, unfortunately for me, I was too exclusive. So taking Matt Breimer's page out of that book, I basically kicked a lot of people off the site in the early days, and I kicked people out of the parties. I mean, there are people who still hate me for what I've done to them. So you can go too far in that extreme, but the bigger mistake I made was to kick everybody off the platform. Once I realized I had a platform that could make money, which was job listings, bulletin boards. We started offering membership and other things on the platform online, I should have opened it up to the world and called it Craigslist. That was the dumb thing I did. I just was too exclusive, and I kept it narrow to media. Because if I had done this broader thing, it may not have been a community anymore, but it would have been a huge business.
So that's really interesting, right? That gets to that point of earlier of it starts out as a community, and at some point, maybe it's possible that businesses have to sacrifice community and to reach any sort of scale.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think community, by its definition, is small. Because, I mean, except for church and sports. But seriously, community is organizing people around a passion for something, right? That passion is for media. So for writers, people, they have to have the same psychographic, demographic, or passion, right? So for my community, it was writers, editors, people who worked with content, creativity, commercial creativity, really. So it could be a graphic designer, a photographer, but they were all selling their services through, into media, right? So they had a similar psychographic, demographic, and, actual practice that they were doing. So for other, so that's by its definition small. There aren't 20 million of those people in America. There are like 5 million of those people in America, right?
Yeah, I think it's like, I always say that community is all about making people feel special, and once it reaches a certain size, people stop feeling special. So the only way I think community can really scale, or business can continue to invest in it, is if they start breaking it out into smaller groups that may be part of this larger whole, but people can have an experience that's more intimate and specific to them that makes them feel special.
And thus the parties nationwide. We kept doing parties all over the country, even after the company was minting money. We kept doing those parties because it meant something to the people. They wanted parties. They wanted us to keep spreading the love and organizing them in these small, special groups.
Yeah. All right. We have to wrap up here.
Okay.
What's your one piece of parting advice?
Partying advice?
Parting. And partying.
I mean, I think I can't hammer home enough just okay. Sometimes you have to be tough in order to be successful in this arena, right? So you have to walk a fine line between being open and being tough. And it's sort of like what Matt said about curation. You want there to be an exclusive feel. You want people to feel selected. And so sometimes you have to do the hard thing, which is to say no to people. And you have to learn how to say it in a better way than I did.
Which is really hard for community builders who are traditionally people pleasers.
We are people pleasers, so we have to fight that urge to please everyone. You're not going to be able to do it. If you want to have a good, strong community that's, got boundaries, and that's the only type that's going to really work, then you have to have boundaries yourself. So, yeah.
Thank you so much.